And we have an intimate theater chat today, just myself and producing artistic director Jade King Carroll. I'm learning that a hidden gem about these theater chats are the dogs. Very cute dog here, and I saw a very sweet dog in the back row there. They're so well behaved. Thank you for bringing them. We love it. We love it. If you're not bringing your dog, please bring your dog. Thank you. It's very loud. Am I very loud? Okay, everyone. So we have a show currently in tech rehearsals. So that's when we add the lights and the sound and the visual and aural ballet begins. So that team is very, very busy working on that for you all. We have first performances starting on Saturday. And so rather than pulling them out of those technical rehearsals, we're going to get inside the head and the heart of producing artistic director Jade King Carroll and talk a little bit about why we've programmed this show this year at CTC and give you a little bit of a taster of what's to come with Execution of Justice. So I'm going to start with just a few questions of my own, and then we will turn the floor over to you all and your questions for Jade. I want to start firstly with the central question of this theater chat, which is why now? And it's a question that we ask ourselves a lot in the theater. We ask our colleagues in the theater. And I know you mentioned in a previous theater chat that's the question you always ask of yourself as you are programming for Chautauqua Theater Company. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Frame the question for us a little bit. What does it mean in the context of theater, and why is it so important to you as an artistic director?
Yeah, I think it's important to me as an artistic director and a director and just art maker is, there's so many wonderful things. And in selecting kind of what to do, what to highlight, what to lift up, I always start with, well why now? What makes it important this season, or this time in this country, or this time in conversation with this audience? And this was on my short list. It's kind of like The Skin of Our Teeth, or The Crucible was pretty quickly cut off, or Execution of Justice, as I was kind of like winnowing down on choices at the end of last summer. So I had decided to do Execution of Justice by November, and I didn't really, I knew that there was a why now at that point for this play. Looking at how we are dealing with our justice system, looking at kind of growing hatred for broad, I mean there's a lot going, so I'm going to be broad, and just kind of hatred for somebody that fits in a different box than you. How we kind of manipulate truth, how that's becoming more and more current. It happens more and more with more and more frequency. So I was looking at all of the gun violence, looking at all of the themes and events that happen in Execution of Justice, and also always looking towards like I'm interested in contemporary classics. I know when I was in college in the early aughts and started studying theater in the 90s, I was introduced to Tennessee Williams as a classic, which was 35, 40 years old. So now, what are our classics that are 40 years old? Execution of Justice is a living playwright, a playwright who I admire greatly, but also a play that is a current classic. It premiered 40 years ago on Broadway. It was when going into a government building and opening fire and assassinating somebody was kind of unheard of and still shocking. It was, so a lot of the themes in this play were shocking at the time that it came out. And I love looking back at, as an artist, always looking back at where we were, where things kind of started, and now we have become, it's almost desensitized to the gun violence in this country. It happens with such regularity. I remember when Columbine happened, I was still a very young theater maker. I wasn't in college yet, and my entire community came up with a devised piece, and we sent money, and it was important, it was relevant, and it was loud, and now it's weekly. And it kind of gets swept under, and oh, did you hear about that? Oh no, the one in Texas, no, the one in Minnesota. it shifted. So as I went back to this play, I went, oh, there's a lot of why nows. And that was in November, and now here we are in July, and there's been a change in our country's leadership. And I think it's even more relevant. I think the why now has grown. It's a long answer.
Yeah, even just in the first week of rehearsals, right? We had the assassination.
They took Harvey Milk's name off the ship,
Yeah,
and
just-
the assassination. Yeah.
Yes. And anyone who attended the mentorship conversation between the Execution of Justice playwright and director Emily Mann and Jade know that Emily has been in your orbit, I think, virtually your entire life, literally. And now you've chosen to bring Emily into the Chautauqua orbit. Is there, besides the play and everything you just spoke about and the relevance of the play, is there something about bringing Emily in now and the timing of that?
Yes. So part of just looking around this room, we're in an intergenerational community, and I know I learn from the conservatory and the people that I'm mentoring as much as I learn from my mentors. And I've had some amazing mentors, and I love mentoring. We have the most amazing conservatory of design and directing fellows. I mean, between all programs, we probably have 1,000 people apply. Almost 500 for the conservatory, there's over 300 for the directing fellows. I mean, it's about 1,000 people, and we pick 16. So we have these curious, alert, present, talented people, and this year from not just all over the country, all over the world. It's pretty close. And I thought, what better gift to give them than my mentor, who's given me so much, and to so we've got 20-year-olds. I'm in my early to mid 40s, and Emily's in her 70s. So to have those generations in conversation around one piece of art, and I know how generous and specific and clear and kind. Emily is an old school director, but she leads with kindness, which wasn't always true for old school directors. So to see that kind of discipline, and Emily's also a woman, I know as a woman of color, I've been the first woman of color to direct on a lot of the stages I directed on, especially earlier in my career. Emily was the first woman to direct. I would have to be the first woman to direct on these stages. So to be able to share somebody who has been working on Broadway, she's done five Broadway shows as a director, I don't know, at least 3 as a playwright, for over for 5 decades now, with people that are just in their second decade or first couple of years of creating. I thought, that's so Chautauquan. And if I can create that atmosphere and that dynamic, I should.
That's a beautiful why now and why here. That theme of, or that idea of intergenerational relationships and culture runs throughout the season. We had our first new play workshop of Pranayama by James Anthony Tyler, and if anybody saw that, this sort of intergenerational relationships are very much key in that piece that's really about community. Can you talk a little bit about other generational echoes through the season?
Yeah, I think all of them do in a certain, this whole season has belonging and community and intergenerational in one way or another. I don't know, how many people saw the real James Bond was Dominican? Oh, yeah! That's great, applause for you. But even in that, he's learning himself through learning Porfirio Rubirosa, through looking back, he's kind of learning where he belongs. The witnesses, we have 3 different generations in conversation choosing to be in community together. Pranayama, the same, from 20 to how old was he, 75? 76, thank you. From 21 to 76, choosing to be in community together. And Execution of Justice, it's a play of a community coming together, of a country divided. And one of the lines that Emily changed was actually, it used to be this is a city divided, and the line is now this is a country divided. So she's in the script, also kind of like, oh, too much why now?
Thank you. Let's turn to Execution of Justice itself. We talked a little bit about the why now around it. Can you kind of zoom out and give us just the overall premise of the play? For anyone who may not have heard or read anything about it, what is this play about?
It's always interesting. What happens or what is it about? I think it's about, again, I think it's about community. I think it's about how we choose to come together. I think it's about fear of other, the manipulation of the justice system, violence, gun violence particularly, and to me there is hope. There is hope in how the community comes together. There's a candlelight vigil that happens in the play that is just beautiful. So what happens in the play, I won't give it away, but I think this is in the teaser, is Harvey Milk, who's the city super, and George Moscone, who's the mayor, are assassinated by Dan White. And the play is the trial. So we see the trial ensue. Dan White was basically let off 6 or 7 years he was sentenced to. He only served 3 for killing 2 people in cold blood, and he got off basically because he was eating too much junk food. So it was the Twinkie defense case. So it's kind of, and what was the original question? Oh, just what was the play? Premise of the play. So that's what happens, and then the way Emily Mann was at the forefront of testimonial theater, documentary plays. So this was all taken from transcripts. And if you read the transcript, it reads like a play. So everything that you hear, with maybe a tense changed or a presence changed, but it's all taken from transcripts. It's all taken from conversations and from interviews and from. So it is the truth in essence and in actual reality.
I'm so glad you talked about that because it really is an extraordinary form of theater. The way Emily has every word spoken in the play was spoken by an actual human being at the time of the event. So it's not Emily going in and saying, "Ooh, what would Dan White say about that?" It is Dan White's true words, which is incredible. Even now, listening to the news, you can't make that stuff up sometimes, right? Hearing how we craft the narrative of ourselves or of an event to shape it to our own story or convenience is very, very striking in the play. I'm glad you mentioned it. Is there anything else for somebody who may not have encountered verbatim theater before? Is there anything else about that form that's part of your why now for this piece?
Well, truth is stranger than fiction, and I think sometimes you can't go, "Oh, well, that didn't happen. Oh, that's extreme. That's a little far-fetched, or that's a little theatrical," when there are actual events and actual conversations and actual transcriptions. So I think it just gives it that weight. I think it's also an interesting thing for the conservatory to be inside of that form, because it's a very different acting exercise than doing an O'Neill. Or something where you have a beginning, middle, and end to every scene, and your character has, when you're hopping between characters, and that whole arc might be in one conversation or one testimony. So there was a why now in what it offers the conservatory. I think it's a great pedagogical experience for everybody. I think that's.
Yeah, and as you say, most of them are playing multiple roles.
Yeah.
And I mean, the craft behind this piece, the exercise of this piece is truly astounding as a theater maker to observe. I've been watching some tech and it's just incredible pistons that everyone is firing on to make this play happen.
And we brought in, I don't know how many people remember Becky Guy. Becky Guy, she was one of our founding artistic directors. But she came in and worked as an acting coach with Emily and the whole team for a week, because it is a different style. And like, what is it to learn a new muscle in the middle of process? So it's just kind of like, how do I get inside of this? There's Joanna Liu, who's an amalgamation. She plays the reporter. And she didn't know what a press room was, because it's also 80s terms and 80s things, so she was learning how to research this particular role. So we were able to bring in Becky. Emily is directing, and every conversation that Becky had with any of the actors, she had with Emily first, but then they could go off and just kind of go, okay, how do I do this? This is what I want to do, this is where I want to go, how do I get there consistently? And then we also brought in Deb Hecht, who's amazing. She's world-renowned vocal coach, text coach, Shakespeare. She's been here since in and out since the 80s herself. But she's here this week working with all of the actors, even though they have body mics, it's for effect. She's working with them, making sure everything goes to the back of the house, that we're articulated, so we have all of this support because it's Chautauqua, and because they're in the conservatory, to make this style in this play so they can live in it comfortably and really, when they step away, they've had enough process that they can respond and react to the experience. They can carry it with them and grow from it, which I think this style of theater allows for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we are doing a workshop later in the season. I mean, there's so many reasons to come see the play. It's not just the conservatory's experience, but that is an important aspect. And later in the season, C.A. Johnson is going to do a master class with them on writing, like writing for themselves. So I think it's in conversation with their whole experience this summer of like what it is to create work. Am I creating for my own experience? And anyway, yeah.
I'm so jealous. They're so lucky. And you've been in the room with Emily many times, and inside of her process. Is there something you think that is particular about her that drew her to that style of theater making as a playwright and as a director? Are there qualities about her?
She's a truth seeker. She investigates the truth. She's obsessed with history and humanity. The first piece she wrote, she told this story, so some of you might have heard of it. One of the first pieces she wrote, she was looking, her father was a history teacher. Her father spoke at Chautauqua, like on the lecture series, Thomas Mann. So she grew up kind of a university brat in that conversation constantly, and found an interview that her father did. Said, I want you to listen to a play. He said, no, make your own. So her instinct to like look at someone's reality and go, I can create a larger conversation through empathy and understanding by putting this truth on stage and having a conversation with the community, I think is just who she is.
That's an incredible story. Next week's Theater Chat, Emily Mann will be here talking about Execution of Justice, and you must ask her to tell you this story if you haven't heard it yet, because it's wonderful. Okay, well, I've had my chance to blab and ask you my burning questions. I wanted, for the rest of our time, to turn it over to our audience, see what's on your minds, and we are going to come to you with a microphone, not because you need it, but just to make sure everybody hears the question. Thank you, Manashi.
Can you say?
Hopefully it'll be on. There it is.
Can you think of any other plays that use actual text for what people say and
Absolutely. Emily was at the forefront of it and was actually one of the first directors to work with Anna Deavere Smith. I've had the fortune of working with Anna Deavere Smith on Let Me Down Easy, but they worked together. Was it Fires in the Mirror? It was Fires in the Mirror. It was one of her early 90s plays. She's still doing that and seeked out working with Emily because Emily was at the forefront of this style. Spalding Gray, Laramie Project, which was here. Yeah. Here There Are Blueberries. So it's definitely something that is part of the theatrical campus.
is a particular genre that you're saying. Okay.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm also a theater educator, and I've done some work with verbatim theater with students of mine based on Anna Deavere Smith's work. And sort of, I'm interested in process, though. with Emily Mann and what you were talking about, in terms of how the actors are how she's working with the actors, and is there any sort of work, outward in versus inward out with this piece in terms of, like I know sometimes with Anna Deavere Smith, there's a lot of, a little bit of imitation where she can hear the word, she imitates maybe the voices, because she did all the recordings of the voices, and she's sometimes literally doing sort of imitation of voice and body. Is there any of that with this piece in terms of actual recordings of the trials, or is it really just the text?
They work very differently. I've been in process with Anna, and I would say she gets inside of the breath of a character, so it's more than imitation. She literally studies she has somebody in there. The last project I did with her, she had a movement coach from Ailey working with her. She had a voice coach. She had the director. So she could learn how they breathe, how they move, how they step. So it's not just a imitation, and like if you don't know her work, and like an SNL kind of I'm putting this character on. It's getting them under the skin, and that's kind of where she starts, right? And Emily, I think, starts with the text. And if an actor wants to go kind of do that research on their own, that's on them, but it's not part of the rehearsal process.
Thank you.
The actor who's playing Dan White has a moment where he does a campaign speech. And it feels to me like there's a little shift that happens there in that moment. Could you talk a little bit about that moment, and if there is maybe something about it that is unique, and if you have any idea of what his approach was to that?
Yeah, I don't know what Zach's approach was to that, but there is a lot of, there's some footage, there's more audio because of the time that we were in of that, and it works, that moment works slightly different because it's the only moment where we literally you'll see him standing on top of a chair. He's on top of the world. He's got everything in his hand. It's when everything's going for him. So it literally and figuratively lifts in a different way, and we get to see the hero, the all-American hero that everybody fell in love with and wanted to protect when he got into trouble. So it works a little different, but I don't know Zach's way into that.
We should see.
I was wondering what the audition process was like for this play.
Sure. So I don't remember the exact number, but between 400 and 500 people auditioned for the conservatory. And then we called back 56, 54. I think I wanted to call back 58, but we only had enough time to do a little less than that. And there were some people that I was calling back because they gave such good auditions, maybe about 15 to 20. I kind of knew that I wasn't gonna cast, but they could have surprised me. And they gave really good auditions, so I called them back. And then there was a solid 35 that I really wasn't sure what 9 or 10 we were gonna land on. So for the callbacks, they all do virtual auditions. The conservatory does virtual auditions. And then I watch all of them. They do something contemporary, they do something classical, they tell me a little bit about themselves, and they do a little improv, something that goes terribly wrong. So I watch those for all, it takes a month, watch those for all almost 500. And then the 50, so we get called back. And Emily, most directors do not do this, especially of her caliber, wanted to be a part of the conservatory callbacks. So she didn't watch all 54, but like the 35 that I was like, I can't, she just popped in and out and we texted. Like, okay, so she had the whole schedule. So she was a part of selecting the conservatory, which is a real treat for them because she got to ask them questions and work with them a little in the callbacks, whether or not they got auditions. The other thing that we do now is we work with Telsey Casting. Telsey's one of the top casting agents in the country, but definitely in New York. And everybody that got called back was seen by Telsey. Like I sent all of those. So that's a nice gift for even if you don't get in, you're being seen by a casting director. Then Zach Applebaum was on lists. We had a list of Dan Whites. We really thought we were going to find Dan White within the conservatory. That was going to be the easiest, and we didn't. We found Schmidt in the conservatory. Schmidt is one of the lawyers. We thought that was going to go to an equity actor. So then we worked with Chelsea, who's our casting office, and they created lists. And we had the only person who had an actual audition work session was Zach in the role of Dan White, because Emily had worked with Frank Wood, not in something that she had directed, but they had done a Zoom reading of Execution of Justice, and Frank was in that, and she was in love with what he did. So she invited him back.
And he plays the prosecuting lawyer.
Yeah, Norman. And then Matt Saldivar, who was here last year in The Light and the Dark, and was here many years ago under Viv's direction in a workshop, was also in Emily Mann's Streetcar Named Desire on Broadway, I was the associate on, which is how I brought Matt here. So when his name popped up on the list, Emily was like, oh yes, he'd be great in this role. So that was Matt and Frank were offers, and did that answer your question?
What character did Matt play?
Pablo, one of the poker guys who lives upstairs.
Hi, I have two questions, sort of factual questions. One is, I didn't hear why the perpetrator got off. I just didn't hear what you said,
Oh,
and I don't know.
he ate a lot of junk food. It was the Twinkie difference. Seriously, he got off because he ate Twinkies and it put him into a different mental state. He wasn't steady because he had too much sugar. He got off from killing 2 people. He was an all-American hero, and it was come see the play. But yeah, it was the Twinkie defense was a famous case for a minute because it's kind of absurd.
Well, I just didn't remember. And the other question I have is, when it was on Broadway, was it called Witnesses or was it called The Execution of Justice?
It's 2 different plays.
two
Execution,
different plays.
yeah. Witnesses was Tell Me You're Dying last year, and we changed very different witness. We changed the title.
Oh, that's right, they are 2 different, yeah.
Yeah, and Execution of Justice is a trial play. Witnesses is a different kind of
Okay,
witnessing.
I'm confused about the 2 plays that we're going to see here in Chautauqua. And The Execution of Justice was in New York when?
It premiered in San Francisco May 10th, 1985, and then by the time it moved to Broadway, I think it was October, because he had already, when it premiered in San Francisco, the trial was over, and by the time it got to Broadway, I think he had killed himself, is that right? It was pretty quick.
Thank you.
I think people can hear me. The time that this took place, and the time that it was actually shown for the first time, attitudes about people that were in the community that were gay have evolved a great deal. And is that reflected in some of the language and how the jury is addressed about the fact that the people who were killed were gay? I mean, is that part of this, and do you see the change?
Well, it's a contemporary classic, so it hasn't changed so much that we're reflecting on it now. So it's still.
No, what I'm talking about is an audience. Are we going to see the evolution, that things have changed?
I think that's for you to take away with, because it's solidly based in the late 70s, and we don't ever flash forward to look back. But in a way, that's what the whole experience is. We're sitting right here in 2025, so the audience is coming in with everything they're carrying today to look at something that took place, that premiered 40 years ago, but took place almost 50 years ago. But it's not discussed on the nose of the play.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I can't. I can't not. I'm a retired forensic psychiatrist, so for 30 years I've worked in the criminal justice system. I've treated insanity equities. I've provided mental health care to people in the prison system. My biggest fear is what I've already heard today, that this will portray the insanity defense as a miscarriage of justice, of something that's just used to get people off for violent crime. My biggest fear is this is going to hurt people with serious mental illness who legitimately don't know what they're doing or don't know what they're doing is wrong. And I hope that's being taken into consideration when you talk about the history and the full presentation. When I hear the term Twinkie defense, I have this post-traumatic startle response because that really did hurt the insanity defense and the people who legitimately have a right to it. Thank you, I will shut up now.
No, I think that's valid. To me, I can only speak, and I'll be very interested in everybody else's, but to me it is such a manipulation and miscarriage of justice that though it is a prismatic view with a lot of different perspectives, where it lands at the end doesn't, to me, I've never thought of somebody who's actually going through something, because it's such a blatant manipulation.
Well, I can tell you from data, out of 50,000 felony offenses in my state, fewer than 0.5% are found legally insane. And I can tell you that some of our insanity victims, you can talk to them, they would rather be in prison than in a forensic hospital because there's no guarantee you will ever get out of a forensic hospital. You only get out when the judge approves it.
And he wasn't considered insane. It wasn't the insane. It's different. He went to a regular prison. He got out of the regular prison, and then you know, he took his life. But it wasn't an insanity defense. It's slightly different, but it's a very good thing to think about. For sure.
I'm glad you did speak. Thank you.
Mine is just a general question about the conservatory itself. I've noticed that typically the actors that you hire are in the website, and it has their bio and where they're from, but the last 2 years they haven't been listed. Are you guys gonna start listing them in the website?
They should be.
Okay.
The website is very hard to maneuver, but they should be listed.
Okay, because I love looking at where they're from and what their background is, that it's fun for me.
We will make sure that gets amended. sorry about the website.
And they're also on the Breton Theater building, right? If you come hang out on the porch.
There's a code?
Yeah.
No, there's the actual bios, but we'll make sure that they're on the website as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I know we're sad that we don't do programs anymore. It's a complaint I actually get a lot from a lot of you that we don't have art programs. But it is Chautauqua Institution being green, and that is why it is not a CTC decision. And this one, you will actually be able to see the full character list in the program. It's a full page, not a half page, but it doesn't have bios.
Hi. When someone asked, were there other plays based on, true actual words, it was killing me. I had to come up with the recent one I had read about, which is this a room? Which was a transcript of Reality Winner and her FBI interrogation, which apparently people really could not believe those were actual words. They just came away from it going, oh my God, that really happened. But it was all, actual words.
Oh, another one that's really good, that's completely different than like Moises or Inamar or Emily or Anna is, it's just right there. Dana H. Have you seen Dana H?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's verbatim.
Yeah, Lucas Nath basing it on his mother, who was abducted.
Lucas spoke here with Kate Hamill and Michael Kahn.
Fascinating form, capable of being used in many ways. It's a nuanced form in and of itself, even though it seems quite specific. I'm glad you brought that up. Other questions? For about 7 minutes. Oh, right down here.
Is the expansion of the theater department going to mean that Chautauqua will have a greater footprint in national theater?
I love that question. We actually we're ahead of the game. we're ahead of the building. I'll toot our horn. So in our first season, we partnered with Barrington Stage, which was our first time doing a co-production. That was a world premiere, which was one of our first times getting a world premiere credit. So forever, Chautauqua Theater Company's name is on Tiny Father. It went to Geffen Theater. We got a residual check because we premiered it. Every time anybody does that play, we get a residual check. When it is in the program, it says Chautauqua Theater Company. So now our name is in programs in LA, wherever that play is done. That's true for anything we premiere, anything we commission. Our name is in that program. Not only that, we got our first New York Times mention for Tiny Father, and we got our first mention in American Theater, which is also national press. Then this past year, we did The Light in the Dark, which was a finishing commission by Kate Hamill, who was here 2 summers in a row. And that moved to New York City. So we had our first off-Broadway transfer of our production. Now, Birthday Candles went, but that wasn't our production. It was a Broadway production, different director, different cast, different creative team. This was our creative team, our cast, our production, moved right to New York, got a New York Times review, and is now published. So all of that says Chautauqua Theater. All of that is an American Theater magazine, and within a year, we were able to, within 2 years, we put a finishing commission, developed something, moved it to New York, and now it's in print. And Chautauqua Theater Company's name's on all of that. And we get money back anytime somebody decides to, any university, which I think Light in the Dark will be done, hopefully by many regional theaters too, but you know, if probably graduate degrees because there's nudity, but I do think it'll be done at universities. In fact, Northwestern is who published it. And any time that gets done, it'll say originally produced and commissioned by Chautauqua Theater Company, and we'll get a check. So we're doing it. And now that we'll have this now that we have this new building, we can do even more new plays. We can invite people in. This year we're doing Industry Weekend. Lily's in a new position for us in the New Works Associate. So now I have some support in talking to playwrights. We can talk to more playwrights. We can have more fulsome conversations. We can continue the conversation after they leave. One of the things that Lily's doing right now is making sure that every theater in this country knows about The Witnesses, is getting the script and is invited to the show. So we're hitting it from every angle, and this new building is gonna allow us to have a place. We were on the phone this morning at 9 a.m. with Sharon Rothstein, who's our commissioned writer for Best of a Baby, and she needs a room to write in the middle of rehearsals, a room for meetings, and I was like, next year we'll have one. Next year we'll have a room just for the playwrights to write, so they can just kind of live in our coral reef of theater.
Thank you so much, Jade. And yesterday we heard a brilliant conversation on the lecture platform between Laura Savia and Pablo Hernandez Basulto from the Public Theater in New York about community building. And so, you know, where are you taking us in this regard? I'm not talking about working with the kids in schools locally. We know we're doing that, and that's wonderful. But sort of at a bigger level.
A civic engagement. I have no plans to do anything where our community is acting in something, is having that kind of experience. So what kind of community, just what kind of civic engagement we're doing outside of the gates? Is that the?
No, not necessarily. I mean, you could talk about the Sunday afternoon discussions about the plays, which is Stephen Stout and Mark also lead, which is a
community building activity. I mean, it's not just happening on the stage in Bratton Theater. It's happening, you know, on porches and in, you know, all.
And we're in this community, so we are in a very special place that a lot of regional theaters, or even the public that's in a bigger city, where people have, you know, 50 different shows any given night to go. So even if you see, I go to the theater like 3 times a week, and I usually see somebody I know, but it's not the same people. It's not the same people at every theater. It's not multiple people that I know. It's not a continued conversation around a play or a theme. So in a way, Chautauqua is doing a lot of the community building and community conversations just in what Chautauqua is. I think, so we did a story circle for the real James Bond was Dominican, which was something that was new, which is a different form of talk back, where we're talking in community with each other, very much like that. We've added some theater chats this year. The talkbacks are so important and a part of the community conversations. As you said, Stephen, is it Stephen and Mike? Stephen and Mark. Stephen and Mark's conversations around the plays remind me of plays that, last year they were talking about Eurydice. I was like, oh, I was the original assistant director on that. That would be a really good play for this community. So I think we're naturally doing that. I've also spent a week in May coming up here and having conversations in Dunkirk, Fredonia, Buffalo, Jamestown, with the Latino community, with the Black community, just meeting different communities. I met with all the artistic directors in Buffalo. So we've invited Alleyway and Irish Rep and Ujima and all these different theaters to come on our Pick Your Own Price Day, which we have for each main stage. There's a Saturday, which is low selling because it's a changeover. So we have a Pick Your Own Price. So if you wanted to spend $500 on a ticket and subsidize some other people that can't afford tickets, it happens. It does. People, if you want to be in a community, and he talked about this, you have to create the community. So if we want $5 tickets, somebody's subsidizing that. So it's not pay what you can. It's pick your own price. If you want to be in community with a larger community than Chautauqua, it's an opportunity to do that and subsidize another ticket. And it's an opportunity to bring people from Jamestown, to bring people, we're in conversation with vet techs. There's veterans in Mayville and in Lakewood that we can see if we can subsidize and get them in for $5. So I am doing a lot of that community outside of the gates, because we have such great community inside the gates. So I'd like to broaden it.
Thank you.
Probably have time for one last question here.
I remember a couple years ago, or maybe several years ago, a play about a commander at a concentration camp that was on trial for crimes. And it was played here, I thought it was a premiere, and then it went to New York City. Do you remember anything about that, or does that ring a bell?
I was not here for that. Does anybody else know which play? Yes, Penny.
Andrew Portman was in there, and the gal who played the attorney or whatever, I saw one from here, and her name is, left my brain, but it was in a closure. It was a fabulous play, and it's worth looking into again.
It really does have to do with what's going on today, because we did have to do with the concentration camps. And it was very, I would say over the top. It seemed like it was over the top at that time.
Moses, what's her name?
Moses Ingram.
Yes.
Moses Ingram, so it would have been 2018 or 2018.
It was, you left here, oh my gosh.
Oh, I will look it up. I love Moses.
It is a fantastic play, and it would be good to bring that resurrected.
Oh, thank you. I will certainly look it up. Perfect.
Well, thank you all so much for being with us and for your brilliant questions to all of us. We look forward to seeing you at Exhibition of Justice. So our performance is on Saturday, runs through the 25th.
Runs through the 25th. So we open on Saturday. Saturdays are previews, Sundays are preview, Tuesdays are preview. Remember, previews are when we're changing and building, and the playwright and director are still in conversation with the process. Wednesday night we open. And then it will be running through the 25th. And next Thursday is a theater chat with Emily Nan. You can buy her book anytime this week, and she will sign them next Thursday here. Thank you.
Thank you.